It is Fabian Williams, marriage and family therapist with lifeanew.com, and I am here because we're going to talk about shh. Okay, we're going to talk about sex. Why are we going to talk about sex? Because I'm a marriage and family therapist, right? And in marriage, you get to have sex. That's one of the benefits. It's better to marry than to burn. Ain't that what the word says? Yeah, it is. So I want to go, I have a list, of course, and I call it my 6 C's of intimacy. But before I go there, I want to ask you to follow, subscribe, like, share. I don't know, whatever the people do. That's what I want you to do. Why? Because I always forget to ask, and I have like 4 followers and they're lonely. So with that, I want to ask you to do that. And I say thank you in advance. And on to our 6 C's, and I guess I should say 6 C's and a P, but 6 C's of intimacy. Intimacy was described to me, one of the ways that it was described to me that really stood out was from my previous first lady, she'll always be my first lady, but from my previous church, Barbara Mann at that time, now Pastor Barbara Mann, because she's pastor in the church. Yeah, yes. But she used to say intimacy is broken down into me, see. And the goal in intimacy is to see inside one another, to get to the space that no one else is invited to. So it is important for couples to be able to do this. And as a marriage and family therapist, and I've been doing this for about 7 years now, it kind of blew me away when I had couples who couldn't say the word sex, who said do it instead of, just being able to articulate any type of sexual verbiage in any way. And these are grown people, like these are adults. These are people who have been married for extensive amounts of time, but due to trauma, due to whatever the reason may be, they could not verbalize the word sex. So that got me interested, and that made me delve into the art of sex therapy, or dealing with sexual issues more intensively. And the first thing is just talking about it. So the first C is communication, and I should run down the C's. The first one, communication, comfort, compliments, being compassionate, commitment, and a counselor, right? And so the first C is communication, because you want to communicate about sex. You want to talk about your likes. You want to talk about your dislikes. You want to talk about what you want to try. What are your fantasies? Are we going to try that fantasy? Am I willing? And that's the other thing. You want to make sure your spouse is willing. Like, nobody wants to be forced to do anything. Yes, I will step out of my comfort zone for you, but I will not do anything that compromises my value system. So be sure that having your spouse step out of their comfort zone doesn't mean compromising their value system. I do want to add that the word says the marriage bed is undefiled, which means you guys can do whatever you want. That means swinging from the chandeliers. Somebody at a conference, somebody actually played that song. That was my theme music as I walked in, because it's undefiled. God is well pleased when you become one in the literal sense. So there's no shame involved when we're talking about marital sex. And so now I continue with the communication. Communicate about everything. Talk about everything you want, everything you've done, everything you've not done, what you want to incorporate, all of that stuff. Okay, so moving on from communication, definitely get comfortable talking, but then it goes to comfort, finding comfort in your sexual being. So there's this couple, I think they're a couple. Oh, I made that up. Penner and Penner, and I forget what they're. Anyway, Penner and Penner are two of my favorites authors as far as sex goes, because they have Christian foundation and they have like a book, Restoring the Pleasure, Great Sex for Women, and I'm making up titles because I don't know the exact wording, but these books are great. They have series, how do you say that pluralized? Series. So they have several books that you can turn to when you want to talk about sex with your spouse and you want to become comfortable. One activity that they do is sensate focus. And sensate focus is a great practice for people who are having some level of dysfunction, but it's also a level of building intimacy, building that intimacy. And one of the ideas with sensate focus is that you are as close as possible, completely naked, and you're exploring each other's bodies, as well as you are sleeping completely naked, touching without becoming intimate. Is there punishment if you end up going all the way? No, because you're married. But there's just a level of growth in your intimate bond when you're able to restrain yourselves, but just be close to one another, just be engulfed in one another. So becoming comfortable with your bodies, becoming comfortable with yourselves, buying that toy or trying that toy. You want to go to that toy store. What? Christians can go to the toy store. Yes, they can, especially if they're married. You can have that party and you can use all that stuff that you buy as long as you are not inviting anybody else into your bedroom. Your marriage bed is undefiled. He said, leave and cleave. He's okay. 3, compliments, complimenting each other often. This is a vulnerable space. You are very vulnerable when you are completely naked. You are letting this individual into you, into the space that you allow no one else into. So compliments are important. Letting this person know that you are my everything. Like, I love you. I see you. And we think, for me, I know I think a compliment on a regular basis, but I don't often verbalize it. Sometimes it's what the weather, sometimes it's what happened at work, whatever. There are reasons that I don't verbalize those compliments. And I'm just saying, verbalize them. If you're thinking it, say it anyway. If you're not thinking it, begin to think it. Start a little gratitude journal, whatever you need to do so that you are thinking the positive about your spouse all the time, because that will grow. My husband says sex starts in the kitchen, not in the bedroom. And that is that kiss on the forehead, that, oh, you look beautiful today. Oh my goodness, you smell so nice. I can't wait to see you this evening. All of those things create the intimacy, the ongoing intimacy versus just sex, just the act, right? Then 4, and there ain't nothing wrong with the act either because y'all married, so if you want to just, okay. 4, being compassionate, having empathy for your spouse, having empathy for that time of the month, a headache, surgery, just anything, the kids, all of those blockers, we call them blockers, but being compassionate about those. So even if we planned this wonderful night, knowing that we are going to be together for the rest of our lives, we will get the opportunity another night if something just happens to happen. Now, don't have every night become we'll wait till tomorrow. Oh, wait till tomorrow. Oh, wait till tomorrow. No, because it also says do not deprive one another. But being compassionate is important. So giving that level of empathy as well as a listening ear to your spouse. So compassion comes in the form of listening and talking, and back to that communication piece, but actually hearing. So making your spouse feel seen, heard, and understood. That is that whole compassion piece and love wrapped in a pretty bow. Commitment. 5 is commitment. Prove it. Somebody asked a question on how can you win a woman back after she's filed for divorce. I said, I don't know that there is. Just don't get her to the point of filing for divorce. And the same thing for a man. And I know for a woman, because I've only been a woman, I'm sorry, but for a woman, once we got to the point where we filed, we have exhausted all other resources, all other avenues. So don't let us get to that point. Be committed, be faithful financially, be faithful sexually, be faithful intimately, be faithful in every single way. That whole 5-fold, spiritually, mentally, all of that stuff. Be committed to your marriage. That is so sexy. And last but not least, if you find yourself in a situation where none of these things work, Or if you just want to do a tweaking, because my husband and I often do a tweaking, find a counselor. So that last C is counselor. Find yourself a counselor, a good counselor that can work with your marriage. If it's a sexual issue, a good counselor that can work with a sex therapist. I am not a sex therapist. I do some practices that involve sex therapy, but I am not a sex therapist. I am not the expert in that field, but I work with it often. And I also often refer out when I find that there is an issue that needs more than my level of expertise, if it's outside of my scope of practice. So that is never a problem. So find yourself a counselor. Tweakings are good. Tweakings are like that whole idea that you just need an impartial third party to allow you to talk clearly without interrupting, without being annoyed, without any of that stuff. So that is just checking in with a counselor every now and again. But if you're finding yourself having some sexual issues, or you want to have a conversation about your sex life and it's too uncomfortable to enter alone, ask a counselor to come alongside you, and they will do that. We will do that. And I'm a good one. I'm one that you could look to. And there are several others. So I have a list of referrals. Last, and I should say that was my last C, but then I remember I said 6 C's and a P. And the P is pray. My husband and I have lasted this long because we actually pray for our sex life. We don't just take it for granted that we're always going to be sexual beings. We have been together since we were teenagers, so we have transitioned through various stages of life. And I'm only 25, but he's like 50 something. So with that, with that fact being intact, we've had to pray through various stages and ages. And they change. Your sexual routine changes as you grow older together. So pray, ask God to come into your relationship. Ask God to maintain that level of desire for one another. Ask God to let your waxing and waning grow and fade together. Like sometimes couples have an issue where one person is so much more sexually oriented than the other. There will always be an imbalance. But when it's like that, you want to truly pray and ask God to do something, because he can truly intervene, and he's not ashamed when we pray about sex. What? So that is the piece de resistance. I don't even know what that means. So I don't know why I'm using that, but that is the icing on the cake, is praying for your sex life, because it is important. It is important to you as a couple, but it's important to God. He truly loves, honors, respects your marriage, and he wants it to last. He hates divorce. So one way that we can bless our marriages by praying for that. So again, I'm Fabian Williams, marriage and family therapist with lifeanew.com. Please follow, subscribe, all that stuff that, everybody says that I'm just not good at, but I'm getting there. Just have a blessed and beautiful day.